Well, each week a group of insiders joins me to offer a perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week sounding off on holiday spending, the big holiday retail shopping spree about to commence. Also, Indiana's continued ability to draw global investment and some big layoffs planned at Cummins. That news coming this week. Joining me this week on The Insiders, pleased to be rejoined. He was on the show earlier in this week's edition. Butler University professor of economics, Bill Rieber, and he's back with more perspective. Also, Vox Global Managing Director Mike Marker and Business Furniture CEO Mary Beth Oakes. And welcome one and all to The Insiders.
Thank you.
For another edition. Holiday shopping season officially, it seems like it never ends, but officially kicks off, I guess, this weekend. Bill, as the economist here, you have, I think, a pretty positive outlook in terms of spending this season.
Well, if you look at the employment in Indianapolis, Marion County, Indiana, it's very strong. You go back 10 years during the Great Recession, Marion County was over 11% unemployment. It was about 3.5% last year this time. It's under 3% now. Wages are growing faster than inflation, and employment levels are much higher. So to that extent, it should be a good holiday season.
Yeah, and Mary Beth, we were talking off camera. You just returned from Chicago. You were on Michigan Avenue,
yes.
And you said there were a lot of shopping bags.
Oh, there were. I was in Chicago this past weekend for the Festival of Lights, right? So the sidewalks were packed with shoppers with lots of shopping bags, and the malls were full. And I thought what was interesting, they were not waiting for Black Friday. The Black Friday promotions had already started, so I saw tons of sales, 40% off, 50% off.
Yeah.
So if that's any indicator of retail performance, it's looking very strong.
Yeah. Mike, your gut feel, as Bill said, the kind of the macroeconomic indicators are pretty good. Unemployment or employment is at a good level. Wages tend to be coming up. So confidence should be at a decent level.
Yeah, I think confidence is at a decent level. I think to the point about spending power, it's there. So for me, it kind of comes down to how do we choose to spend those dollars then, right? And in terms of shop local initiatives, certainly a big fan of the Magnificent Mile in Chicago and doing some shopping there. But how can we also support kind of local companies, because it's such an important time of the year for them. And also there's research that shows that buying experiential gifts for people has a really positive impact. So when we think about like cultural institutions and organizations like the Indianapolis Zoo and memberships to support some of those folks, I'd like to see some of that in terms of how Hoosiers think about gift giving. Do
you think small businesses are getting a little more attention? I think as American Express has been associated with the Small Business Saturday, which I think is this weekend, and a real focus on those small businesses because there's so much attention, especially online shopping and others with the Amazons and the big retail.
Yeah, I think there's a give and take here for us as we think about our economy. I think the Shop Local initiative is fantastic and supporting local companies and buying their goods and services. But then we also have a big FedEx operation here, and we have a very large Amazon fulfillment center. So it's not an either or, buying online and if you see a FedEx worker, certainly give them a hug over the holidays because they're really going to be humming out there pretty soon.
There was some negative news, a lot of positive news we've reported on this year in Indiana, especially when it comes to manufacturing. But this week, a bit of a shocker. Cummins, Columbus-based Cummins, announcing plans to lay off 2,000 workers globally, exempt employees globally. No word on how many will be here in Indiana as opposed to in other locations. But Bill, as you look at that announcement, Cummins saying the kind of a slowdown is going to be a little steeper than they thought, but taking some pretty bold action.
Right. Cummins is an employer of choice in Indiana and around the country, even around the world. So it's a major hit when Cummins has to lay off individuals, especially around holiday time. But the international economy is quite volatile, and this is really to be expected.
Yeah, Mary Beth, as you look at this and you work with some of the biggest iconic brands in Indiana, your sense is, some people talk of a slowdown in 2020. Some people say not so much. They're kind of all over the board. Any feel for that?
The organizations we've been talking to as we forecast, ahead for 2020, it looks very strong still. I would say there's going to be a little bit of a slowdown, maybe a little bit softer than 2019. But we gauge it by our organizations investing in their workplaces. Are they hiring? Are they making those expenditures, on really investing in their spaces? And we're seeing double thumbs up. We're seeing a very strong, even Cummins, they have plans to work
And they're
on.
not backing away from
No.
those expansion plans, which are substantial.
Not as of
Those are
yet.
important.
Not that
Yeah.
we've heard of yet.
Yeah.
No, I was not. I think their business is very cyclical, obviously, and I've seen this happen a few times in the history of my time in working with them.
Yeah.
So I was surprised, but maybe not so surprised. So,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah, and in an outfit like Cummins, it's a global entity, as Bill mentioned, and so TBD on how many of these jobs will be local, how much will feel an impact here locally versus around the globe. But there's so many geopolitical things that touch their business that eventually we'll hear more of this story. But for now, I hope it doesn't impact us here too much locally.
Yeah, should also mention news this week, the STANLEY Black & Decker, the Connecticut-based company, announcing layoffs that will take place in Greenfield. About 140 workers or so will be impacted at STANLEY Black & Decker there in Hancock County. So those a couple of announcements in the manufacturing sector that point to perhaps an uncertain next year. We'll see how that plays out. On the positive side, Indiana continues to attract international investment. Solinftec, the precision ag company based in Brazil, had announced earlier this year and opened a U.S. headquarters in West Lafayette at the Purdue Research Park. Now they say, Mary Beth, they're going to locate global headquarters, the whole deal. They're going to move it to Indiana. A testament, I think, to Purdue, to the state of Indiana, to AgriNovus Indiana, organization behind a lot of this food and ag bioscience movement.
I think it's also, if you look at the local government in West Lafayette and Lafayette, I mean, they are great places to do business. I mean, Mayor Dennis, we've worked with him in West Lafayette, and I'm really I continue to be really, I really look at those companies that they've been adding in those communities that have been coming there. And I think there's a reason for it. I think it's a great place to do business. I think obviously the talent that comes from Purdue, being there in a college town, I think there's a lot of positives, but they really do continue to attract top-notch organizations and a lot of growth there right now with all the companies that we've been working with.
Yep.
There's a great success story here in what I've heard from AgriNovus in that this company, Solinftec, was planning to place their U.S. headquarters in Illinois. And from what I've heard, it was almost done. And Beth Bechtel and the team at AgriNovus heard of this from some introductions that were made. And they said, wait a minute, you should know what we bring to the party here, and you should really give us a good, strong look. In short order, Governor Holcomb was on the phone with them. Purdue University President Mitch Daniels was on the phone with them. And that synergy of AgriNovus and this cluster that they've built here together in the state is a real powerhouse. So that happened a year ago when they said they'd be here. And so they know how to get people here, but then they know how to keep them. Because now it's like, now we'll do the global headquarters too. So it's really impressive the work that those clusters
And that
can do.
story, representative, I think, of momentum and going on collaboration around the state of Indiana. Also interesting, and we only have about a minute left, places to visit in 2020. Indiana makes the list from Frommers. They only picked 20 places around the world to go to. Indiana's one of them.
The dunes in Michigan, but then they went on to talk about how great Indianapolis is and all the great things we're doing here. So I think it's a part of the branding strategy for our state, really getting the story out there about what a great state we have, great cities, great people, great resources, and I think it's paying off. I think getting that message out there is helping us.
From a business standpoint, Bill, this kind of publicity, you think beyond the numbers, do you think it has an impact?
It's a nice location. We have clean government. It's just nice to be here.
Yeah, and I think that national park designation up there for the dunes is a real game changer. It'll get people here who hadn't thought about it as a destination. And then when we get them here, we bring them into other parts of the state as well.
Thanks one and all. Mary Beth Oakes from BFC, also Bill Rieber, Butler University, Mike Marker from Vox Global. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
We'll be right back after this.